am back. I didn't think I was going to be able to do anything today. Uh-oh. Hello? Hello? Oh, my mic just went out. What happened? Something happened. Maybe? Hello? Okay, don't move the mic, because for some reason it just decided to stop working. Is it working now? I hope so. Okay. I didn't think I was going to get on today, but I have a little extra time. Yay. Got all the stuff I needed to do this morning done, so I am here tonight to read you some more Bible verses. We're going to do Exodus 21 and 22 tonight. So if you haven't caught up, you could go back and read that later. Yesterday we talked about Mount Sinai and how God told Moses he needed to go up the mountain in order to see God, because God was going to give him instructions on the mountain, and no one else was allowed up on the mountain. God revealed himself in a cloud of lightning and thunder, and then he said, like, nobody but Moses could go to the mountain, and if anything touched the mountain, then they would die. So, like, they weren't people, animals, anything. Like, well, they weren't allowed near it. They weren't allowed to touch it. And I guess, like, because the cloud of lightning and stuff was so, terrifying, like, people didn't want to go near the mountain. And so Moses went up there and, to see God. And then he got the 10 Commandments that God gave him. And they were all, I don't think it said they were written down on the tablets, but I mean, maybe that's the second time. Yeah, because this one just said he spoke it. So I don't think we actually talked about him, like, putting it down on any type of, the rock or stone or whatever that the actual 10 Commandments was supposed to be on. So, today we're going to talk a little bit more about, like, certain laws that God is going to set for the Israelites for them to follow. And it's kind of just laying out certain things, like rules, like the laws, for their culture in order for them to live in a daily setting, and how their culture is going to do day-to-day things. So, we're going to start on Exodus 21. Hebrew servants. If you buy a Hebrew servant, he is to serve you for 6 years. But in the 7th year, he should go free, without paying anything. If he comes alone, he is to go free alone. But if he has a wife when he comes, she is to go with him. If his master gives him a wife, and she bears him sons and daughters, the women and her children shall belong to her master, and only the man shall go free. But if the servant declares, I love my master, and my wife, and children, and do not want to go free, then his master must take him before the judges. He shall take him to the door or the doorpost, and pierce his ear with an awl. Then he will be his servant for life. If a man sells his daughter as a servant, she is not to go free, as male servants do. If she does not please the master who has selected her for himself, he must let her be redeemed. He has no right to sell her to foreigners, because he has broken faith with her. If he selects her for his son, he must grant her the rights of a daughter. If he marries another woman, he must not deprive the first one of her food, clothing, or marital rights. If he does not provide her with these 3 things, she is to go free, without any payment of money. Personal injuries. Anyone who strikes someone in a fatal blow is to be put to death. However, it is not done intentionally, then God lets it happen. Then they are to flee to a place I will designate. But if anyone schemes and kills someone deliberately, that person is to be taken to my altar and put to death. Anyone who attacks their father or mother will be put to death. Anyone who kidnaps someone is to be put to death, whether the victim has been sold or is still in the kidnapper's possession. Anyone who curses their father and mother is to be put to death. If two people quarrel and one hits the other with a stone or with a fist, and the victim does not die but is confined to bed, the one who struck the blow will not be held liable if the other cannot get up and walk around outside with a staff. However, the guilty party must pay the injured person for any loss of time and see that the victim is completely healed. Excuse me. Anyone who beats their male and female slaves with a rod must be punished if the slave dies as a direct result. But they are not to be punished if the slave recovers after a day or two, since the slave is their property. If people are fighting and a pregnant woman is hit and gives birth prematurely, but there's no serious injury, the offender must be fined whatever the woman's husband demands and the court allows. But if there's serious injury, you are to take life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, and bruise for bruise. The owner who hits a male or female slave in the eye and destroys it must let the slave go free to compensate for the eye. And the owner who knocks out the tooth of a male or female slave must let the slave go free to compensate for the tooth. If a bull gores a man or a woman to death, the bull is to be stoned to death, and its meat must not be eaten. But the owner of the bull will not be held responsible. If, however, the bull has a habit of goring and the owner has been warned but has not kept it pinned up and it kills a man or woman, the bull is to be stoned and its owner also to be put to death. However, if payment is demanded, the owner's life may be redeemed by the payment of whatever is demanded. The law also applies if the bull gores a son or daughter. If the bull gores a male or female slave, the owner must pay 30 shekels of silver to the master of the slave, and the bull is to be stoned to death. If anyone uncovers a pit or digs one and fails to cover it, and an ox or a donkey falls into it, the one who opened the pit must pay the owner for the loss and take the dead animal in exchange. If anyone's bull injures the bull of another and it dies, the two parties are to sell the live one and divide both the money and the dead animal equally. However, if it was known that the bull had a habit of goring, yet the owner did not keep it pinned up, the owner must pay, animal for animal, and take the dead animal in exchange. That is interesting that they kill an animal for like goring. Cause like it's a bull, like it's gonna defend itself. Unless, I don't know, maybe they didn't know how to deal with bulls back then. Seems like kind of a waste though if they were gonna use it for other stuff though. Protection of property. Whoever steals an ox or a sheep or slaughters it or sells it must pay back 5 heads of cattle for the ox and 4 sheep for the sheep. If a thief is caught breaking in and is struck a fatal blow, the defender is not guilty of bloodshed. But if it happens after sunrise, the defender is guilty of bloodshed. Okay. Anyone who steals must certainly make restitution, but if they have nothing, they must be sold to pay for their theft. If the stolen animal is found alive in their possession, whether ox or donkey or sheep, they must pay back double. If another grazes their livestock in a field or a vineyard and lets them stray, and they graze in another person's field, restitution must be made from the best of the livestock, the owner's field, or the vineyard. If a fire breaks out and spreads into the thorn bushes so that it burns shocks of grain or standing grain or the whole field, the one who started the fire must make restitution. If anyone gives a neighbor silver or goods for safekeeping, and they are stolen from the neighbor's house, the thief, if caught, must be paid back double. But if the thief is not found, the owner of the house must appear before the judges, and they must determine whether the owner of the house has laid hands on the other person's property. In all cases of illegal possession of an ox, a donkey, a sheep, a garment, or any other lost property, about which someone says, "This is mine," both parties are to bring their case before the judges. The one whom the judge declares guilty must pay back double for the other. If anyone gives a donkey, an ox, a sheep, or any other animal to a neighbor for safekeeping, and it dies, or it is injured, or is taken away while no one is looking, the issue between them will be settled by taking an oath before the Lord that the neighbor did not lay hands on the other party's property. The owner is to accept this, and no restitution is required. But if the animal was stolen from the neighbor's, restitution is required. Sorry, I skipped a line. If it was torn to pieces by a wild animal, the neighbor shall bring in the remains as evidence, and shall be required to pay for the torn animal. If anyone borrows an animal from a neighbor, and it's injured or dies while the owner is not present, restitution must be made. But if the owner is with the animal, the borrower will not have to pay. The animal was hired, and the money paid for the hire will cover the losses. Social responsibility. If a man seduces a virgin who is not pledged to be married and sleeps with her, he must pay the bride. I can't talk. Okay. The bride price, and she shall be his wife. If the father absolutely refuses to give her to him, he must pay the bride price for virgins. Do not allow a sorceress to live. Anyone who has sexual relations with an animal will be put to death. Whoever sacrifices to any god other than the Lord must be destroyed. Do not mistreat or oppress a foreigner, for you were foreigners in Egypt. Do not take advantage of a widow or an orphan. If you do, they will cry out to me. I will certainly hear their cry, and my anger will be aroused, and I will kill you with the sword. Your wives will become widows, and your children fatherless. If you lend money to one of my people among you who is needy, do not treat it like a business deal. Charge no interest. If you take your neighbor's cloak as a pledge, return it by sunset, because that cloak is the only covering your neighbor has. What else can your neighbor sleep in? When he cries out to me, I will hear, for I am compassionate. Do not blaspheme God or curse the ruler of your people. Do not hold back offerings from your granaries or your vats. You must give me the firstborn of your sons. Do the same with your cattle and your sheep. Let them stay with their mothers for 7 days, but give them to me on the 8th day. You are to be my holy people, so do not eat the meat of any animal torn by wild beasts. Throw it to the dogs. Cool. Gotta love those Bible rules, huh? It's always interesting that Christians today, don't really. It's funny because they always talk about like following the 10 Commandments and stuff, but then you look at it and you're like, there's a lot of other commands in there too that you just completely ignore. But Yeah. And that's always weird too, because growing up, we were always told to like follow the 10 commandments and stuff, but then we were always told like, you know, you're saved, so yeah, don't shave, yeah. Or like was it the Nazarites? Don't cut your hair, which is hilarious because I went to private school and my kids went to private school for a little bit. And since they are both boys, like they had to have their hair cut and it couldn't be any longer than their ears. And I'm just like, okay. But yeah. Yeah, the huts that they have to live in. They have like there's still like countries today that actually have those huts. I just watched like a I don't know what it was. It was like a little video or something on YouTube where they were talking about how they're trying to like change that whole perception in some countries where they still do that, and they the women have to go live in those huts during that time, and then they don't a lot of them are not great. Like they're not like um it's not like being at home. Like it's just a hut with no air conditioning and no heat, and you have to just stay there with other women who might also be on their time of the month. So it's just like it's not great. But yeah, I don't know what that I don't remember where I saw that now, but yeah, there was a thing about there were people who were going over into countries that had done that, and they're trying to change the way that people perceive that, so that women aren't, I don't know, kind of outcast during that time, and they have more resources. And um yeah, they were talking about even just making better huts for them, because if they're going to continue this tradition that has gone back so far, that they want to be a part of making it easier and better for those women, because they really don't have the ability to do that in some of those countries. So I thought it was interesting. I might have to look that up again and like figure out who actually did that. And yeah, because I think that's a really good cause for people in those countries that still have that mindset that they can't be around girls at that time, which doesn't make any sense, but it's just ingrained in them, I think, and it's hard to change. Like I get that people often definitely don't want to change. So sometimes people have to come in and show people that change is okay, and that things changing couldn't be for the better. But people don't always see it that way. So yeah, it is interesting too, because it's like, if that thing about like killing the animals if they kill a human being, tweet out your Twitch if you want, if people want to come talk about the Bible with a bunch of atheists. Yeah, you're totally free to do that. I lost my train of thought. Oh, I was talking about like the animals and how God said like to kill them and stuff. So you have to wonder, like, if God saw animals as like, well, I mean, I don't think any of these things are actually true, but the people who wrote the Bible, like, did they think that animals and people were kind of similar? Because like if an animal gorges you, they're not doing it to, oh yes, he hates pigs. No, if an animal like gorges you, they're not doing it like out of malice or hate. Like it's a natural instinct to protect themselves. So like, why do we have to kill the animal that protected itself? But then it goes on to say later, like, if someone comes in your house and tries to like steal from you, you can kill them at night, but you can't kill them during the day. It's like some of these laws just don't make any sense in my brain. But I know I live in a different culture in a different time, which makes it, I don't know, makes me look back and see just like how different people thought and how it does not align with what, I don't know, what Christianity is today. Because I know growing up in Christianity, there was always that war in my mind about, am I saved because I said a prayer, or am I saved if I follow God? Because they always say like, oh, you have to follow, you know, what God commands you to do, but you also have to just believe. And that was always something that I struggled with growing up in the church, was like doing things like you have to follow God, but you're saved because you said a prayer. It was just, I don't know how to describe it other than there was a war in my mind about that, because it just didn't make any sense that if I was saved, then why do I have to follow laws? Like, I thought the whole point was like the salvation prayer was to be saved from not being able to uphold the law. So if I can't uphold the law, then why am I trying to uphold the law after I'm already saved? Yeah, just things like that didn't make sense to me. But I guess just looking back on it now, like, I think about how, you know, even though I had those like nagging feelings in my head, I always pushed them aside because the adults in my life were always telling me that, you know, this is true, it's backed up, there's like science, and there's I don't know, a whole bunch of things that tell us like the Bible's true. So, you know, you don't have to worry about it not being true, I guess. Like, but yeah, it's odd because growing up, I thought those people knew what they were talking about. But the older I get, the more I realize, like, a lot of times people in church are just faking it to make it. And a lot of them don't actually know what's in the Bible. And they don't know how the Bible was written. And they don't know, you know, real history versus Bible history. Because I know for me, like, obviously, I lived in a bubble. Hence my break out of the bubble and start thinking for yourself. What? Automod. Why is it doing that? That's weird. I have not set it up to do that, so that's really odd. Sorry. I don't know why it's doing that. Yeah, but I always thought those people knew exactly what they were talking about. And come to find out as I get older that is that is a tough I don't know, thing to unravel in my mind, is that most of the adults growing up in my life were just as brainwashed as I was. And they really had no idea of anything outside of the bubble they were in, you know? And that was my thing. It's like, I was in this bubble for most of my life. Like, from the time I was born until, well, let's see, when I left was 27, 28. Well, 4 years ago, so a long time. At least over 20 years being in the church, and honestly believing that it was all true, and believing that the adults in my life knew what they were talking about. And then when I became an adult, the older adults in my life knew what they were talking about. But I look back now and I think about, you know, all the testimonies and stuff I heard in church, and a lot of them were just, you know, people attributing things that happened in their life to God without actually having any evidence to attribute those things to God, which was when you were in it, you didn't think about that. You didn't think about, oh, well, maybe that extra money from, your grandma Susie was just because she had some extra money and she wanted to give it to you, not because, God told her that you needed that money, or I don't know. It just seems to me like they don't have any evidence to back up what they claim, but they attribute it to their God. And that makes their testimony seem more real, I guess. I remember in Sunday school one time, like, this lady had surgery and she was talking about how, normally people who have this surgery, they have a really tough time recovering, and like they don't heal quickly and it's painful, and she just went on to say, like, I know God was there with me because the nurse came in and she said that, I looked like I had been recovering for like 3 or 4 weeks, and I had like no bruising and scarring and stuff like other people had, and I had no pain. And it's just like, okay. Like, I mean, it's quite possible that she just, in her brain, thought it was God and somehow attributed that to God, and somehow made her brain think that she wasn't in pain. I don't know if that's a thing, but I feel like saying God is the one who didn't let you have pain during your surgery, when we have nothing to back that up, and just because you heal better than someone else, that's not evidence of God. That's just evidence that maybe your body can handle this a little bit better. Thank you, God. I'll have to look that up. Yeah, so I think that was a big thing, is when you're in it, you don't see the problem with that. You don't see the problem with, oh, they attribute that thing that happened to them to God. But once you step outside of that box and that bubble and you realize, there are so many other factors in our life that can make things different than the way that we think they're gonna go, and just jumping to the God conclusion is not, it's not helpful for people, especially skeptical people. Because the more I am in this community and the more that I meet other people who have left the church and are atheists now, like, those kind of, feel good testimonies, like, they don't mean anything to people who are skeptical, because there are like a billion other scenarios that could come before what these people are claiming as their God. So I guess it's mostly, honestly, testimonies are just for people in the church, and it's just to like confirm what they believe is true, and they're not going to change their idea on it because they already believe it to be true. So yeah, that's an interesting take. Anyways, I'm just babbling now. Yeah, so that was fun. I think we're getting close to the tabernacle. I don't know when we're gonna actually start. Having guilt over talking with someone you're attracted to. Maybe. I think that might have to do a lot with like purity culture. Because I know, like, me, when I grew up in purity culture, like, they always said, be careful not to, like, lead people on and stuff. Especially, like, it's so ingrained in the women in the church that, like, we're the problem. We're the reason that guys want sex all the time and demand it, and, like, they basically make us out to be harlots, I guess. Like, women are harlots, so, and men can't help themselves, so it's very much blamed on the women, and so women are way more cautious, I think, when it comes into the dating scene, when they're raised in like purity culture, and they're raised in that culture where they're told that, you know, if they do anything that could lead a guy on, like, then it's their fault if something happens. Um, because they never put responsibility on the man. But yeah, I think that it breeds a lot of guilt into people because they don't want to have those relationships that are just I don't know, like, that are gonna just lead to like a physical relationship, because the church is very much against that unless you're married. Um so it puts girls in this gonna go sit and shave. Awesome. Um yeah, it puts girls in a not a great place, because instead of letting anybody have accountability for their own actions, they very much treat women like they're the problem. So I think that's a big part of the religious indoctrination too. So if, like, you want to go date a girl who's Christian, she's going to be a lot more standoffish and a lot more, well, not always. It depends on the Christian too. In today's world, things have changed so much. I know, but the church I used to go to, a lot of Christians that, you know, they don't follow the whole don't have sex before you're married and stuff. A lot of them just live very secular lives, but they go to church every Sunday. So um, people's mindset on a lot of that stuff is changing, and I hope it changes for the better, because I know purity culture really harmed me, and it's really harmed other people in my life, because it turned us into objects instead of people, where we were just objects that, you know, one day a guy is gonna marry you, and then you get to, you know, he's gonna be over you, and God's gonna lead you and him to wherever he wants you to go. So um no, it's not good, and it's dangerous, and it doesn't allow people to explore what they need to explore in life, you know. I never, outside of my bubble, I never explored anything like sexually or um that kind of stuff, because, like, I waited till I was married, and then I've just been with my husband. So um it's been interesting, and it will be interesting um after all the stuff in my life is done right now. If I do have to, you know, get back into the dating scene and stuff, it'll be weird being an atheist, because the last time I dated, it was like, I was a Christian, and I was, you know, I was a little Christian virgin girl, and you know, I was looking for a Christian man who was gonna take care of me and make sure that, you know, we followed God and we did what God wanted, and um, you know, our entire lives were intermingled. So, like, moving forward, if things end up changing in my life, I think if I ever have to go back to the dating scene, it will be a very different experience, and a very different viewpoint on, you know, what I might want in life. And nice. Hi, Helen. Um, yeah, but I just think about, like, there's so many people that grew up in that purity culture type of environment, and it messes with your mind, man, in ways that you just, if you're not raised in it, you can't understand. And it sucks too, because it puts so much guilt and shame into, you know, something that's normal and natural in life, that like, no matter what you do, it's really hard. It's really hard to shake that off. But yeah, I haven't dated anyone yet because I'm still married right now, so we'll see. I don't know, my life's probably heading in that direction, but we'll see. Um but yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. And it's definitely changed my views on marriage too. It's like, I don't know. I mean, I get like the tax breaks and all that, but at the same time, it's like when you get married young and when you're a Christian, everything gets intermingled. Like finances, house, cars, money, everything. Everything is just intermingled. And if anything happens, getting all of that like detangled and detached is like a nightmare. So, um, yeah, I don't know. I've definitely my mindset has changed on a lot of things, and I don't know what's going to happen in the future, so we'll see. But, you know, if I ever do have to go back into the dating world and stuff, I will definitely think long and hard before, like, actually going back and getting back into a marriage. Or just, if I do get into a marriage, be very different than I was in this one. Yeah. Yeah, your view set just, your whole perspective and mindset changes. And um yeah, I don't know. I know that my advice to anyone who's in the church or outside the church is like, don't get married like super young. Like, take your time, you know, even if you need to like live with the person for a few years, because the whole purity culture and just jumping into marriage and you know making your lives into one is really, hi B, um it's not the smart decision. um but at the time I thought that was the right thing to do because I was a Christian, and at 21 that's what people do. They get married and they have families, and they follow God. But yeah, my mindset's definitely changed on a lot of that, and I really hope that you know I think that I've just learned a lot more because of it. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe I learned that even if things don't work out, like if you're married, then if you end up being in another relationship or you end up getting married again, like there are things you're going to do very differently the next time around, just to make sure that whatever happens this time around doesn't destroy you. So I guess it's going to teach me, I guess, to be more self-reliant and not so reliant on like the church and my husband and all these things I thought I needed when I was a Christian. So yeah, not trying to get too much into my crazy life right now, but yeah, I'm glad that I'm learning. I'll put it that way. And I think having life experience, that helps too, because I think a lot of people who come out of the church, they don't have life experience. They have no idea how anything in life works outside of the church. So I mean, if you get into relationships and you're just thrust into being an adult and there's nothing you can do about it except whatever they tell you in church, that's what you're gonna do. And that's what I did for the first like 28 years of my life. So but it has definitely changed the way I see things now, and it's definitely opened my mind to different perspectives. Yeah. And it's nice too that I'm in a place where, you know, I can teach my kids those things too, because they're still young enough and they're still sponges at this point. Like, just teach them life things that they might not have as much experience in, because I've actually been through those things. I don't know. I don't know about the witch thing. I always thought witches were like cool, but I didn't. Like, I don't really believe in that stuff, but yeah, I lost my thought. Oh, just like being able to teach my kids to like use, yeah, science and reason, and even using, what I've been through to be like, well, this is what happened in my life, so, take this as a word of caution or whatever, And honestly, I've gotten to the point, like, if my kids don't want to ever get married, that's fine with me. Like, it's their decision. I don't know. I think a lot of it's just really antiquated, and it's getting to the point in this, like, in our regular, the culture that we live in, it's not as needed anymore. And I don't know. I think the government, the government's like giving married people special treatment is stay a Pringle for your own mental health. We'll see. I don't know. It's still hard. It's weird. I mean, I'm still married right now, so we'll see what happens. I'm in the process of just craziness of life, so but yeah, I'm just saying, like, down the road, if I end up single again, I don't know if marriage is something I would do again. So it's definitely something I'd have to think about. But yes, very, very good advice, I think, from someone who's been in the church and out of the church and has, well, been at least on one side of it now. We'll see how the other side goes. But yeah, don't marry young. Take time. Don't mix things too much, because it's just a nightmare. Take care of yourself and your children, and yeah, that's all the advice I have for anybody who's in the church. Also, if you're in the church and they're teaching purity culture, run away very quickly, because it's not good for anyone, and it really does damage to any relationships that you will have in the future. I mean, most religious things, I feel like, do a lot of damage to a lot of different parts, but the purity culture is a big one, especially for me, because that was such a big problem with me. With me growing up, it was so ingrained in my mind that this is what I have to be, that I was on the extreme end of, like, sign the pledge card, like, don't do anything till you're married, like, yeah. But they don't tell you that, like, that switch or whatever that they think is gonna pop on when you get married pops on, because it doesn't. Like, you still carry around that guilt and shame for the rest of your life, because you've been so ingrained that something so natural is not okay. So, anyways, I'm babbling. Thank you all for coming and reading the Bible with me, although I think a lot of people came after the Bible. So it was a lot more just chatting. Yeah, thanks you all for coming. If you're watching on my Twitch, that's awesome. If you're not watching on my Twitch, if you're on YouTube, you can head over, and if you have a Twitch, you can follow me on Twitch. I am reading the Bible through. I was gonna do it for a year, but life got crazy. So instead we're going to, I'm just trying every day to read a little bit if I can. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it today because I had a bunch of stuff to do this morning, but yeah, you too. Bye, Leon. Yeah, I had a bunch of stuff to do this morning, so I went and got all that stuff done, and my house is empty right now, so I was like, I'm gonna go stream because I have time to do this and I can read my Bible and read the chapters that I need today. So if you want to come over to my Twitch, it's Overprotected Atheist over on Twitch. If you're on Twitch and you haven't seen me on YouTube, I have a YouTube channel, Overprotected Atheist. Yes, I have both. I have it. I stream on both now. I like found a way to do that because I didn't know how to do that before. Everything I do on here, it's all self-taught, so sometimes I have to just spend hours like teaching myself how to do certain things so that I can get on here and do my streams. But yes, I have a Twitch if you want to go over and subscribe or follow. I guess it's follow on Twitch, it's subscribe on YouTube. Or if you're on Twitch and you haven't seen my YouTube, I do YouTube, mostly animated videos about, you know, how I left the church, purity culture. I have a playlist of like absurd Bible stories that I've done, just fun little things like that. And yeah, so I hope everyone can, you know, subscribe or follow on those. If you want to support me in any way, I have a Teespring store, I have Patreon, I have a PayPal. Yeah. So if anybody wants to support me, I'm gonna try to do this. Awesome. Yeah. Oh, PDX Cycler guy. You're Susan. You're with Susan, right? Yes. We live really close to each other, if you didn't know that. We live like a half an hour away from each other. She sent me some DMs about stuff they've done in Portland. Yeah. Yeah, everything on here is self-taught, but I enjoy it, and I want to make this hopefully something I can do more in the future. I was hoping, because I started in January, and I was hoping that eventually it would, like, monetize and stuff, but it's taking longer than I thought, so, but yeah, I might have to look for a job soon if I don't get this stuff monetized soon, so, because there's a whole lot of stuff going on in my life, but, I'm gonna try to do this as long as I can, and if I have to take a break and go get a real job and then come back, I can do that too, like, do whatever I can, but, yeah, if you guys want to support me, there's lots of ways to support me. I'm on Twitter too, Overprotected Atheist on Twitter. Yeah, I was really happy when she sent me that stuff. It's nice. One of these days, we're gonna have to, like, meet in person, because we live so close, but, haven't gotten there yet, so, yeah. I don't know what else. Oh, and I have a website, too, that has, like, all my Teespring stuff on it at overprotectedatheist.com if you guys want to go over there, too. There's not much on there. It's just, like, my videos and a little bit about who I am and some, like, books I recommend for people coming out of the church, and then just, like, my Teespring stuff, so, yeah. I'm glad to see so many people here today. I don't normally get this many people, because I normally stream during the daytime, but if my house is empty at night, it's going to be a lot easier to do that. It's just, my kids are way too young and too noisy to stream when they're home, so, thank you all for coming. If you want to subscribe and follow me on those platforms, you can, and I'm gonna try to read, I'm still trying to read the Bible as much as I can. It's not gonna be in a year now, but yeah, I'm having fun with it, so thank you all for coming, and I will see you all whenever I decide to get back on here. I'm hopefully tomorrow I can get back on and do another chapter. If you missed all the chapters, hi Beach. If you missed all the chapters right now, we're in Exodus. We just read Exodus 21 and 22. So if you want to catch up, or if you just want to, come on here and watch me, that's fine too. Yeah, and I don't have a lot of like the backup the past ones, because I tried to put them on my YouTube for a while and they were just taking a long time. I now have a way to like stream them both so that I don't lose the new ones, but I think most of the Genesis ones got deleted off Twitch because Twitch doesn't keep your stuff forever. So I did put a few on from Genesis, I think, on my YouTube, but so yeah, if you want to go back and look at any of those and just see what we read about, what we talked about, about mostly the Exodus stuff, I think. We also talked about possibly doing a watch party of Prince of Egypt once we're done with Exodus, so we'll see if we want to do that, because that sounds fun. And I like that movie. And I think that'd be a fun time just to have an atheist night to watch the Prince of Egypt. So if any of you guys are wanting to do that, you can do that too. Thanks again for coming, and I will see all of you later. I've had so many people on today. It's awesome. Yeah. See you guys later. Bye.